All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Just a few more seconds and we'll get started for this week's Facebook Live. All right, everybody, good evening. My name is Naif Mubarak with Mubarak Law. Thank you for joining us on this week's Facebook Live. It is July 30th, 2020, and we are going to go over a few updates on what we have. We will be taking questions, and we don't have any guests today, so it's just me and you guys. So please feel free to ask any questions relating to your legal concerns, and I'll do my best to address those today. We also have really some important updates regarding personal injury and immigration, so please stay tuned for that. All right, Hassan, thank you. Hello to you. I love when everybody is interactive with us. Okay, so as tradition, we like to start every Facebook Live with a piece of good news. And this week's good news is going to be Eid tomorrow. So, Kul Sana wa antum salmin, Eid Mubarak. I am looking forward to celebrating with my family tomorrow. I know it's difficult for everybody during COVID to not see, but for those who are celebrating, happy Eid. I hope you enjoy it with your loved ones, and we'll go from there. So other good news is tomorrow we will be sending out our newsletter, which would recap all of this month's headlines and news updates that has happened. So be on the lookout for that. It is the August newsletter. If you'd like to be added to that newsletter, please feel free to email Jessica at mubaраklaw.com, and she'll add you to that newsletter. On the newsletter, you will see case updates, good news for some of our case results, and just a calendar of events to kind of stay in touch. It's one of the best ways we can update you all with the latest updates in immigration. So that being said, if you like our newsletter, I did have a call last week from somebody from Jacksonville saying, thanking us for this. So I really do appreciate the feedback. If you guys could like and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, it would mean a lot to me. And follow us on all the social media platforms like as Facebook and Instagram. All right, next week, we are going to have a special guest, attorney Rania Arwani from the Arwani Law Firm. Rania specializes in family law. You would not believe how many calls we get regarding divorce, child support, alimony, what you can do and what you can't do in the middle of divorce proceedings. So we're going to have Rania as a guest on our show, and she is going to take some questions, and I'm going to ask her some questions. And she's another member from the Orlando Orange County Bar Association. She's from the Arab community and she supports the community. So I look forward to having Rania on our show next week. All right. Last week, I was celebrating and sharing with you all that USCIS, the way they were undoing DACA, was deemed inappropriate by the Supreme Court. And we weren't clear as to how USCIS was going to treat new applications and renewals moving forward. But then there was a federal court from Maryland stating that they must accept new applications. Sound good so far? Great news. However, on Tuesday, July 28th, USCIS released a memo stating that regardless of the Supreme Court's decision, they're not going to accept new filings. So this is kind of in contradiction with the Supreme Court's position. This is in contradiction with the federal courts. So we can be sure that there will be additional lawsuits filed against USCIS by organizations like AILA or ACLU. So right now, USCIS states that they're not going to accept new DACA applications, and they're also going to only give work permits for 1 year. We have some people saying hello. Akile, I'm going to see you later. Can't wait to eat some good food tonight at Fresco in Orlando. And of course, Rasha, thank you for supporting us. And for those who don't know, my sister is a political consultant, Rasha Mubarak, and you can follow her page, Unbought Power, and she's constantly having updates about activism. We have volatile times right now, so if you want to be active, if you don't want to be active and you want to learn some more, follow her. All right. So the war continues on DACA, and we will see what's going to happen with these applications. So for those who were hoping to get new applications filed, it looks like USCIS is going to ignore the Supreme Court's decision and ignore the federal court's decision. So that is a interesting and frustrating thing that's happening to our DACA recipients. Now, another big news was there was a New York court that issued a decision that the public charge, the new 944 form, should not be applied during the pandemic. This is a huge headline, and we're not sure how it's going to play out over the country in general. But this 944 public charge issue is basically accompanies many adjustment of status applications, which is what's used for a green card through marriage, for example. And it's super invasive and lengthy. And a lot of times we are asking our clients for things like credit scores, property abroad. So this 944 document is being challenged, and we will continue to update you guys on the public charge. The courts and immigration courts are for non-detained. So if you're not in custody, immigration courts are still closed through August 14th. So if you are one of our clients and you had court scheduled, let's say August 5th, this is going to be automatically rescheduled, and you will receive a new notice in the mail. Later today, I'm going to take some questions that we've received relating to deportation and frequently asked questions about court hearings in the immigration court and deportation orders. So if you're interested in that, please stay tuned, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes. Just a quick going with the updates. As you know, with immigration, there's many every week. We are changing from week to week. Consular process. This is for individuals who are abroad and they had a family member here petition for them. So once the case is approved at the I-130 stage, the consulate and the National Visa Center is in charge of scheduling their interviews. Many embassies and consulates have been closed, and there's been zero activity. There is some sign of life, and good news is we've started to receive emails from the National Visa Center requesting additional documents. And there's some things you need to know if you are a client who is going through the consular process. Right now, when you upload the documents electronically, it can take 2 to 3 months before an employee of the National Visa Center reviews it. So we will not know if the documents are sufficient, or they will deem them as not complete until 2 to 3 months from now. So this is to kind of give you an idea of where all of this delay is coming from. So we hope that what I'm about to say doesn't happen, because it's going to create further delay. USCIS gave notice to about 13,000 employees that they may be furloughed because of budget concerns. Congress has extended this to the end of August, but there's going to be thousands of employees laid off or furloughed for USCIS if the budget doesn't pass. So now what's happening in Congress is they're trying to negotiate the budget, but also give some USCIS accountability. What does it mean to have USCIS accountability? Well, first of all, this agency is a customer service oriented because our clients are paying for fees. So the agency should have an aspect of customer service or accountability. So many of the processing times have become double, if not triple, in some instances. And Congress, what we're asking for with AILA and immigration attorneys is that before giving money and increased budget concerns, there needs to be somebody responsible for the delayed cases and all the mistakes that are happening constantly with USCIS. We've received rejected packages in error. There are receipts coming for cases after they've been approved 2 years later. So you can see that whatever's happening at USCIS is not efficient, and they need to kind of get their ducks in a row if they're going to be asking for more money. However, we don't want all these employees, all these hardworking people to lose their jobs. Plus, in addition to that, they will be, further adjudicating cases, so they may be subject to delays. Okay, and for those of you who are commenting in Arabic, tonight's Facebook Live will not be in Arabic. We do that once a month, the third Thursday. So ان شاء الله كل ثلاثة خميس بنعملكم الفيسبوك لايف بالعربي بس هالليلة رح تكون بالانجليزي. So that will be the extent of my Arabic tonight, but that is just to address some questions there. Also, a quick update on personal injury and like car accident cases, and how has COVID affected these car accident cases in our firm. So for those who don't know what happens in a car accident case, you are injured in an accident, we send notice of representation to the insurance carriers, and then you start to treat pursuant to your doctor's orders, right? Once the treatment is complete, that is when we request medical records to make our demand from the insurance company. So what's happening with all these service providers? They are delaying the cases because they don't have enough employees to provide with the records, or many of these health places are using their resources to focus on COVID, and they don't have the ability to get us the records in time. So in the past, it would take us a month or two to get medical records from the hospital or from a chiropractor, but now it seems to be taking 2 to 3 months longer than normal, and we cannot make a demand to the insurance company until we have these records. So we are asking our clients to go in person, or as you're seeking treatment or your therapy, to request copies of the medical files as you go to avoid further delay down the road. I have Faraz here, my friend from middle school or high school even, saying, I appreciate the comment and thanks for watching. I love the support of my community and my friends and my family. So I'm very blessed, and I'll add that to today's good news. All right. So next week, I mentioned that we have Rania Arwani, who's a family law attorney, who is going to take questions regarding child support and alimony and what you can and you cannot do. And you've seen on our show a couple times that we talked about how many immigrants or foreign nationals are subject to domestic violence and threats by their spouse or family member, for fear of deportation or intimidation. So this happens all too often, is using the children as pawns, saying, you'll never see your kids again if you divorce me. You'll never see your kids again if you don't sign this agreement. But Rania is going to talk to us about what rights you have and what we can do to help you. So if you're an immigrant, if you're not an immigrant, I think everybody needs to know about family law, what your rights are, and kind of how it all correlates to the big picture of immigration law, and even in some cases, wills, trusts, and estates. All right. So those are my updates for you guys on our live today. And I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions regarding the removal proceedings, and which is known as deportation. So removal proceedings is the actual correct name for deportation. And so we have a question here. It says, how can you become deportable, or how can you become removable? Well, first of all, you're not a U.S. citizen, okay? So U.S. citizens cannot be deported. Now, if you're a naturalized citizen, you can be stricken of your citizenship if it was obtained by fraud or unlawful means. But as far as deportation and removability is concerned, you're not a U.S. citizen, so that's the first criteria. Then we'll look at whether or not you are a permanent resident. Now, if you're a permanent resident, the way to become removable or deportable can be by abandoning your residency And abandoning your residency can mean taking a trip longer than 6 months or longer than a year. Then you'll have to overcome the burden of proof stating that you have abandoned your residency. Now, a lot of people are not aware of this, and the law is actually 1 year or more. But I tell all of my clients to keep their trips under 6 months, especially if you hope to be eligible for citizenship down the road, because any trip longer than 6 months breaks what's called your continuous residence. And this is a requirement for naturalization. We did a whole N400 naturalization video where we go through the application page by page. If you want to check it out on YouTube, please do, and you'll see some of the requirements that we discuss in there. Now, back to deportability, we were talking about abandoning your residency. So in addition to that, you could become removable or deportable based on criminal history. Some criminal convictions can land you removable. Now, you have to be careful. There's a different standard for removability and what's called inadmissibility. So if you're a green card holder and you travel to Dominican Republic for vacation, and when you're returning, they can charge you as inadmissible due to your drug convictions. And in some cases, you're not removable, meaning if you're in the US, they can't initiate removal proceedings. However, if you travel with these convictions, you can be deemed inadmissible. So sometimes you hear it all the time. Oh, I was told I'm not removable. I thought I was okay to travel. Well, guess what? Removable and inadmissible are completely two different standards. The next question is in connection to deportation or removal, and that is, can you be deported or can one become removed if they have US citizen children? What happens with these individuals? What happens with the children? Absolutely, you can be deported even if you have US citizen children. Just by having children alone does not protect you from deportation. This is a big myth. And if you're not a permanent resident, one thing that you can seek relief from deportation is if you've been here continuous for 10 years, you'll have to demonstrate that. You would have to also demonstrate that you have a qualifying relative, like a parent, spouse, or child who's a citizen or resident. We're not done. Those three requirements are not going to get your case granted to stop the deportation or to stop the removal. You need to demonstrate what's called exceptionally, extremely unusual hardship to that individual if you are to remain in the United States. Now, it may sound horrifying. It may sound terrible to separate a parent from their child. However, case law has been established that mere separation is not sufficient. Even difficult country conditions or lack of education alone is not enough. So what we try to do is like a full picture, total analysis of health issues, financial issues, country conditions, loss of education, danger in the home country to the child. Does the child speak that language? The child's age. Now, the age is important because some judges will look at the age of the child, or most judges will look at the age of the child to determine how are they going to be affected. If it's a younger child, the position is generally that your child can adapt quickly to the home country, so they're not going to suffer this exceptionally, extremely unusual hardship. Okay, so this typically has to be what we deem as like catastrophic. It has to be very difficult in order to qualify for this cancellation of removal. So that's how people can be deported or removed from the United States, even with the children. So people ask all the time, what happens to my children if they remain here? Well, you can give guardianship to a family member or a friend. You can take them with you. Or, obviously, if you leave them without any plans or without family members or a guardian, they will go into the care of the government. And a lot of times that's not a good solution or the preferred solution if there's other alternatives. So for people who are undocumented and who otherwise would maybe qualify for this form of relief, I ask them, you need to be prepared for the worst case scenario. You need to have proof that you've been in this country for more than 10 years. You need to pay taxes. You need to be demonstrating that you are a person of good moral character and worthy of the judge's discretion. Now, if you, God forbid, get arrested or detained, a lot of these documents are going to be hard for me to get while you are in detention. So we ask you to start to scan these documents for a rainy day and have somebody have an electronic copy, so that way your attorney can help you in the future if you are placed in removal and deportation proceedings. Here it says, can I file a waiver to return after deportation or removal? So there's a consequence of a removal order stating that you cannot return to the US for 10 years. There are waivers to get around this removal order and this 10-year penalty. However, you typically have to have a qualifying relative and need to demonstrate the hardship to that relative. So in some cases, yes, there are waivers for the removal penalty of 10 years. Now, your removal order and your 10-year penalty is not the only thing you have to worry about. If you are a visa overstay, right, you don't need to have criminal history to be placed in removal. You're not a US citizen. You've overstayed your visa. Guess what? You're now in removal proceedings as they charge you as somebody who's an overstay and not in valid possession or have any status. So this is another way to end up in removal or deportation proceedings. Now, visa overstays, this is something I talk to my clients about all the time. If you have been unlawfully present in the United States for a period of 180 days or less, you are subject to what's called a 3-year bar. Meaning, once you leave the United States, you have a penalty of 3 years before you can return. Now, if you're here for more than 1 year, no, that was incorrect. See, people make mistakes. Less than 180 days, there is no penalty, okay? But 180 days to less than 1 year, there's a 3-year penalty. Now, this jumps to 10 years if you stay for more than 1 year out of status, okay? So if you get deported, you might not only need a waiver for the deportation or for the removability, you'll also need a waiver for the unlawful presence. Court, people are still receiving notices for court, although the court is being closed due to COVID. And one of the questions we received is, how do I know if I have a deportation order? Or how do I know if I have a removal order? You know, that might sound like a dumb question, but it's actually not. We receive this question all the time because sometimes people are not aware that they had court. If somebody came on an employment-based visa or somebody mail was sent to the wrong address, that's the only way to know that you received a court order. Now, if you never received the notice and then you never went to court, guess what? Then you probably more than likely have an order of removal, what's called in absentia, not in your presence. So these are all just like different things to talk about in deportation and removal proceedings, as it's properly called. And, you know, there are options for you. Now, if you don't meet the 10 years, but you have a fear of going home to your home country, you may qualify for asylum. But you have to demonstrate that you have a fear of persecution based on what's called a protected class. So you can't just say that in my home country there's a war, it's not safe, or the crime in Brazil is too bad, I want asylum, or in Venezuela there's a food shortage. These alone are not enough to qualify for asylum. You must demonstrate that you will be targeted specifically for this protected class, like a political opinion, your gender, sexual orientation, religion, or social group. So there's a lot to consider. It can't just be the mere fact that your home country is not safe, unfortunately, as the laws are written. So that was just a quick overview on some removal and deportation questions. I hope I didn't bore you and you guys found it interesting. As always, we'll be here Thursday at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook Live. Next week, we will have attorney Rania Arwani, and then we are going to also reach out to maybe a business consultant to talk to us on Facebook about how to manage your business and how to budget your business for all of our entrepreneurs out there, and some common mistakes that our own personal consultant sees in many small businesses. So with that being said, I want to thank you for those who've joined us. Please like and share this video. Be on the lookout for our commercial on Spectrum TV and other digital sources. And let us know if you need anything. We're here for you. We offer personal injury, immigration. You can still file many immigration forms, although they're not, there's no court or some of the embassies are not open. You can still file petitions for family members or for even potential employees. So if you have any questions, you can visit us at mubaraklaw.com. You're always welcome to email me or my assistant, Naif at mubaraklaw.com or Jessica at mubaraklaw.com. Thank you guys for joining us. And for those who are celebrating one more time, Eid Mubarak. And I will see you guys next week.